Friday night at the football game, a player is injured. He wipes the blood away and tosses the towel into the corner. Later, you get the call to come and clean up. What's the proper way to clean up a blood spill? First of all, never clean up anything involving blood or other bodily fluids without taking proper precautions. Always wear gloves. Use other protective equipment such as masks and eye protection when necessary. Disinfect all areas where fluids may have spattered. Dispose of bloody towels or other contaminated items properly. If a mop and bucket are used, never reuse the mop again in another area without properly disinfecting. And always discard the contents of the bucket. Never reuse what's in the bucket to mop up another area in the school. The reason for taking such extreme precautions is that health experts now agree that exposure to bodily substance pathogens such as the AIDS virus and hepatitis B can lead to illness and perhaps death even after just one exposure. A few years ago, no one was really sure of all the dangers of exposure to bodily fluids, but there is a new kind of thinking now. Health officials warned that you should treat all bodily substances as if they are infected.
We ought to assume that anyone might be infected with a bloodborne pathogen. People who are ill and infected with hepatitis B or HIV may not always have symptoms, and so we assume that everyone might be infected, that they might be at risk of transmitting those organisms to us. There are certain body fluids that contain blood that are high risk. That would be urine and feces, blood itself, and people ought to be very cautious about being exposed to or cleaning up any of those substances.
At a school, you come in contact with bodily fluids on a daily basis. A sick child vomits in the cafeteria or in a classroom. Once again, a mop and a bucket are required for you to clean it up. A student gets hurt on a playground. He goes to the office to have a bloody knee taken care of by a nurse. Inside the gymnasium, you have to clean the wrestling mat following a competition. There is sweat, perhaps some blood all over it. Towels are strewn all over. Restrooms are a major cleanup effort after school. Toilets, sinks, and walls all need to be properly disinfected each day. There are dangers out on the grounds of the school, too. Discarded needles, which may have been used by someone involved with drugs, need to be removed and disposed of. And always be careful when throwing out garbage. Never try to make more room in a trash can by using your bare hands. In each of these cases, you must always take precautions to protect yourself from possible contamination.
All custodial workers should make sure that they have access to protective equipment and make sure that they use that protective equipment. There's always time to put on your gloves and, if needed, a mask and goggles. We had many occasions in the past where police, firemen, emergency responders felt like they didn't have time to put on safety equipment. They had to react immediately. But I think that there's no emergency that can't wait until the worker protects themselves with their equipment.
Here are some other common mistakes that can occur on the job. A person wearing gloves with blood on them turns on a light switch, which now becomes contaminated. You remove a pair of gloves that you just used to clean up blood, then rub your eyes or eat some food. Or you get cut or stuck by a sharp object inside of a garbage bag because it brushes against your body as you carry it out to the dumpster.
One day I was cleaning the floors in this restroom, the girls' bathroom, when I realized that the sanitary napkin holders needed to be cleaned out. So I bent down, reached in, went to pull them out like so, and there was a needle, a hypodermic needle. I got stuck with one. I took it up to the office. I didn't realize that you have to go to the hospital for tests. It's not just one test, and it's not just one thing they're looking for. It's 2 tests within a month or 2 apart, and it's AIDS plus hepatitis B, which is very bad.
The job as a custodial worker is generally safe. What we've tried to show you here is that there are times when you should be very careful.
I think it's also important that anyone who's exposed to a bodily fluid, who has an accident, not be embarrassed and report that to their supervisor. By documenting those exposures, then the worker has the most protection that's available. This isn't something you should be embarrassed about and hide, but it ought to be reported and ought to be reported immediately after the exposure occurs. Then health officials can be consulted and give some advice on risks, can also give advice on things that might be done as precautions so that others do not become infected.
Health experts say there are certain precautions that you should always take when there is a chance that you will come in contact with blood or other infectious materials. When cleaning up blood or other bodily fluids, always wear gloves and other protective equipment when necessary. Clean surfaces with appropriate disinfectants. Never reuse mops or buckets unless properly cleaned and disinfected. Remove gloves as soon as the job is complete. Dispose of them properly and always wash your hands. Needles and other sharp materials should be carefully handled and should be discarded in puncture-resistant containers. The best way to reduce the risk of exposure is through a comprehensive program of education, proper work practices, and proper use of protective equipment. Taking these and other precautions will greatly reduce the chances of getting a disease.